there's that part at the very end
Hmm.
when they're out in the desert with Hank and Walt and the neo-Nazi gang, and
Mhm.
uh, and they have Hank at gunpoint, right? And Walt is still trying to weasel and talk his way through because he still has that any sense that I can just talk my way through everything, right? And Hank looks at him and he says, he has a line like, "You're the smartest man I know, but you're too stupid to see that they made up their mind, before you ever started
Hmm.
talking." And it's just a great, great line. And something I've always agreed with is, host Eric associates NE with that feeling that you can talk your way through anything. And I think you see that from Walt there, right? He just thinks
Yeah, yeah,
if he can use enough words, he can resolve it, right?
yeah.
And you see that throughout the series, right? Like
That's true.
he always thinks he can talk his way through everything. That if he can
That's
just
true.
get in front of people and talk. And whereas
Right.
Hank is a little bit like, you dumbass, you're not reading the situation right at all. And you could also say that it speaks to Walt's inferior, right? Like he's really ignoring his FE and not seeing people the way they are. He's just assuming he can strategize his way through it, and he doesn't see that all of his words are wasted.
I was just gonna say that with FE inferior, like uh, with ENTPs, it's a lot it's a lot easier for them to weasel their way out because they have that NEFE. But when you have an FE inferior, it's so not necessarily just naive, but um, it's the person doesn't have that much. I don't know what the word is, like charisma with it. They lack that.
Yeah,
They not lack it, but they don't know how to do that. It's not
Right.
just within their
it
wheelhouse.
doesn't it really show you though that how good that Bryan Cranston does at portraying that? Because obviously, being an actor, he has really high charisma, but he portrays Walt really, really well in that way.
Also speaks to Saul too, and you see the differences there. Like this,
Yeah,
Saul has Fe.
I was excited to talk to him. I really loved his character.
Saul.
Saul, yeah,
Yeah.
he was like my favorite character very early on because I think I kind of can attach to those NE Dom types too. Feels to my own.
It still gets him into trouble, but
Yeah,
he actively puts himself into trouble.
right. That's the NE
Um,
Dom, right? Talk yourself
that's
into
the
and out of
NE.
trouble.
That's PE as well. Sometimes
Yeah,
that's his PE. PE just likes to actually seek and destroy,
you know
no
what's
matter
funny,
what. Hmm.
and this is going back. I kind of said that part of where how I ended up as an engineer, as a chemical engineer, was related to the show. But my original plan when I first went back to school really was to be a lawyer, and Saul was part of it. That what I loved his character so much I could picture myself as a lawyer.
Oh wow.
I just changed my mind once I was actually back in school.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I
Skylar
always
is
think
yeah.
she's a very unfairly treated character if you look at fans.
Oh
Like they
yeah,
treat
for sure.
they yeah, like they really take because she is a obstacle to his journey, but they view her in a very negative light. But she's an obstacle in that part of his journey. Obviously, most of his journey, if anything, is very negative. And so she's an antagonist to the main character, but the main character has a negative agenda, right? So that's really unfair to her character, I've always thought.
Oh yeah. Yeah, people are very unfair with her character for sure. Mainly because they're like, oh, she's a terrible wife and all this stuff, right? But it's like Walt literally went and murdered people and is building a drug empire behind her back.
It's because
So
people are, it's
like
like they're,
definitely.
because he's the main character, people are
Hmm.
like way too forgiving of his character. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, because he is kind of the hero of the story, but he's a hero but he's a negative hero. So
Yeah.
you've got to like.
I don't think
people,
anybody is truly a hero within the story of Breaking Bad. Nobody's
the
an
heart.
actual hero.
The closest is really Jesse, just not because he does any actions
Yeah.
that are heroic, just more he's the heart and the sympathetic part of it that
Yeah.
keeps it from being too dark.
Yeah. And I think Jesse's like a great point of connection for the like viewers to connect with the story.
No, I agree 100%. It's like, and to me, he's similar to the role of Huey on The Boys, right? You have to have somebody that has a heart to connect with, or it just gets too hard to watch, right?
Exactly. That's funny you brought up Huey, because he is definitely also plays the same role, because he's not necessarily a good person either, but he still also has like there's some sort of like moral dilemma that he's fighting with, and that's what Jesse's doing too.
Yeah. To be fair, it's not just him too. It's Starlight, right? They're the two sympathetic. They're the two sympathetic characters. The rest of them are pretty dark. But you're right. Neither of them are perfect either. But their flaws are sympathetic.
Yeah, their flaws are not nearly as bad as the worst can be.
Yeah. I think without them, it would be hard to watch.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Game of Thrones is the same way, right? Like it has a couple of characters that are more sympathetic.
Yeah.
And that helps resolve it.
You know what's crazy is that I found out like Jesse, his character, they were gonna actually kill his character off in like the first season. But because the actor played Jesse so well, and the way that he was on screen, and like how he was like the way his character played with Walt and stuff was just so good that they're like, we can't kill him off. We have to keep him going.
Yeah, if you think about it, if you try to imagine it without him, it wouldn't be nearly as good, because then it would just be too dark.
They must have changed the whole script then to do that, because to kill off Jesse in the beginning is very different from having him end off the hero at the end.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, isn't that crazy though? Like that's insane. Like the guy did so well with his acting that he like literally made it like they can't get rid of Jesse.
Yeah, if you think about it, his relationship with Walt is the only thing that keeps Walt being at all sympathetic, right? Like he does try to rescue Jesse, even though he's burns the bridges with his family and all this stuff, but he still does go back at the end specifically to rescue Jesse, right? That's his only motivation at the end, other than I guess exerting the control, right? Like he really resented that the neo-Nazi gang took his vision away from him, right? I think the ego of that really bothered him, but I think it was also he wanted to rescue Jesse though.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, he definitely wanted to rescue Jesse, because in a way though, like Jesse became, even though Walt has a son and a daughter, the connection he had with Jesse was almost like a father-son relationship in a very dysfunctional way. And he had this weird claim or possession of Jesse, like to himself. He's like, Jesse's mine. Like, you don't get to do whatever you want to Jesse, like without me saying so, kind of thing. Like there was a possessiveness to that Walt had towards Jesse.
Yeah, and I think that comes through from the very beginning.
Oh yeah.
And there's another scene, because I'd watched a video yesterday too. That was just a general video where Walt accidentally calls his own son Jesse in a conversation. Right, that really drives that home. But have you guys ever seen that the thing with his birthday breakfast, like that they make for Walt, and how his very first one at the beginning is like, the bacon and eggs are in this really happy face, and it just each time you see him with breakfast, it gets worse and worse.
I didn't realize that. No.
Yeah. It's like the coding of it. There's all kinds of these little choices in the way they presented the show that, to reinforce the narrative themes.
Like the distortion of being happy in family life is being destroyed.
Yeah. it's a highly detailed, all of the
Mhm.
different little things they add in to reinforce
Yeah.
it. It's
It's really great when like
Yeah.
shows do that. It really is.
Yeah, it's a masterful show for sure.
Bouncing off of each other in that way.
Doesn't she initially think she think he's got some kind of gambling addiction or something?
Yeah, he plays it up because she's like, "Where'd all this money
Yeah.
come from?" And he's like, "Oh, it's from
Okay.
gambling."
Yeah, okay,
like,
so he
"Oh."
admits that. I got that. Okay.
Yeah, and they're like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
that
why
all
are you
makes sense, bro.
gambling?" And he's like, "Oh, because
I'm an addict.
because I'm
Feel bad.
I have a gambling problem because I'm about
Yeah.
to die, and so like it really did a number on me, kind of thing."
It's like the scene with Hank, right, that we watched yesterday, where he's like, you've done all these terrible things, and he's like, yeah, but I've got cancer. You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah,
justifies
exactly.
it somehow. And I'm fighting like hell, and he's like, you're so full of shit. You're just staring at him like, that doesn't justify anything. What are you doing?
Exactly. It doesn't justify you being a horrible person.
Right, as if I have cancer justifies I'm a drug dealing like murderer, and it's like one of the things I always thought is that sometimes the show didn't do a great job at is kind of portraying the social repercussions. But then there's a couple of scenes, the one where Jesse disappears and he has to go find him, and he's in like that place where it's just a bunch of drug addicts laying around after Jane's death. And I thought that was a great scene, partially because it's one of the ones that really did kind of show what his work, the social impact of it, right? And he was so detached from it.
Exactly.
One thing to point out too is how that Dreamers was side of Skylar, because she had no issues with the collective. She also had no issues with possibilities and giving plenty of options, and almost being positive in those options when it came down to getting treatment for Walter, or helping him see different ways in how he can actually make things better for himself in spite having cancer.
Yeah, and she was she was frustrated with him too, because the two people that were part of his team that got rich, right? Like, she saw him as just stubborn pride to not ask them for help, but he wouldn't do it because of his pride.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And it was his pride that did it, because like the thing is, if he didn't want to do like the bad things that he ended up doing, he would have never denied having people help pay for his treatment to get better.
Right.
But he was using that cancer as an excuse to become what he always wanted to be, which was like some sort of drug lord, like just do whatever the hell he wanted in life, kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think again, I think the drug lord thing was just an opportunistic path, right, to get his ego fixed. Like, I don't think he'd ever thought about it until I think it literally had never dawned on him until he was sitting there watching the video with Hank and that group at the party, right? I think he just stared at it going, oh, I could do that.
Really, no, that's what I mean. That's what I mean, though. It's like he was like, "Oh, I can do this," but like he was trying to use like his cancer as an excuse for doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not it, dude.
No, not at all. It was all about him asserting his ego.
Exactly.
And that him admitting that was such a great moment. Like when I think we saw that in our clip. I don't remember if it was a video I watched on my own. The one with where Skylar tells him, "Don't stop with this sort of 'I did it for you' bullshit," and then he stops her and he's like, "No, I did it for me."
Yeah.
And it's just a really great moment when he finally admits it, because
exactly
he tried to weasel out of that for the whole series, right? And I guess it kind of, if you think about it, that's kind of one of the turning moments that give him his closest thing to a redemption, right, with his rescue of Jesse, right? he's like, okay, then I'm gonna do. I can't undo all the harm I've done, but the only
You're getting
thing
a
I
bit.
can think of that would be a positive thing, the only thing I can do is try to distance my family from it and see that they get at least some money, and rescue Jesse, right? Because those were really two activities that he had nothing to gain from.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, this Scarlet too, where her assimilation being SI, you can clearly see that and happening throughout the show, where she's continuously trying to keep that order, that a bit of restraint in that way to try to like keep the family together and things of that nature, and but yeah, she also started to struggle with her demons, mainly because of Walt was struggling with his, and it was affecting her in that way as well. And then just like there's just a lot going on in regards to both of their dynamics, but definitely her TI NI, right? Her form of ideation from the introverted point of view, from the anchor, was was combative as well, because when things didn't work out uh objectively, then her going into that more selfish mindset started to brew, and it started that's where people actually seen her character as being not likable. And that's one of the misconceptions that come from FE Doms into thinking that they had to portray goodness, at all times, and harmony from a stereotypical point of view was being taken as a person who was always good. Like some people would say good FE is dominant FE, which actually doesn't make any sense, right? To describe anything as good is to put a standard on it. Um, and there's no standard to anything dominant or inferior, rather, but it's just more so how you're using the function.
I
So I
kind of
thought it
do.
was, yeah,
I agree with no standard as far as good or bad, but there is a standard in confidence, right? Like you can be confident in
exactly.
something that's bad.
Oh yeah, absolutely, right. 'Cause you're processing it confidently, which just means that you're enduring in that process, and you're not actually surging in it. And but as far as bad and good, right? You have those moments, but the thing that's continuously being done is the thing that you do well, which is that particular process. So
I
with
think
her, it's clear.
it can lead to the dominant being not a blind spot in the way we would understand it, but a blind spot in that you can miss that you're overconfident in it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So Scarlet is FENE,
Hmm.
FENS, which
I
speaks
agree.
to,
Even
yeah.
yeah, without any, I think that that's spot on.
hmm And if we all agree with Hank, you mentioned in the beginning, Rogue, about Hank being TESN, most likely.
Yeah. Oh, Rogue, your sound is off.
Yeah, and your cameras. I'm not sure if that was on purpose.
Oh, I clicked the wrong button. I wasn't paying attention, but I agree. I think I might almost have to go back and watch some other videos on my own to resolve it because it's still hard for me not to see the SE, but I also don't disagree with the argument, if that makes sense. So it's a bit of an unresolved thing in my head.
Oops. I think with Hank, maybe also the actor himself, he might be infusing some of his own character into it.
that could definitely be part of it for sure.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree, because I don't
Yeah.
even have a strong counter argument exactly. I'm just the vibes of it. It's more what I'm going by, so it could be
I mean, both
something else I'm
TE,
picking up.
both TE and SE actually can come off strong and
To me,
blunt.
I
Yeah.
think he comes off as very intense, and so to me, he comes off as very attached. Is part of it. He does, like a lot of times with your TE DOMs, there's a coolness to them, and he doesn't have that. To me, he comes off very intense.
You know, that's funny
Mm,
you say that. I think there is a distinction between the two TE DOMs. The ones that you spoke, the ones that you said that there are coolness about them, I think it's mostly the TE NS. The TESN will have more intensity to them than
I,
I think. I'm not sure. I guess I'm going off on
no, that's true.
yeah.
That is true.
I don't know. I think of even the other ones that have been typed as TES, like Thomas Shelby or other real people, and to me, they have a very sort of a cool way of structuring,
Well,
right?
I'm
Even
not
when
so
they
sure
let,
about Tommy Shelby
I,
even TESE, to be honest.
to me, you don't think he is?
No,
Maybe not. Maybe
he
that's
might
part
be,
of it.
but
I
I
think
don't.
he is.
I don't know.
That's kind
I
of what
don't
I'm
think so.
going by. Is
He
other
seems too
examples.
introverted to me.
No. I think he is TE in that stuff. I mean,
Maybe it's
we
just the
can talk.
actor or something that's like portraying it that way or something. Like,
This is why you guys kind of have me here too, is to make sure we don't stay on task.
yeah, Breaking Bad. We're on
Yeah,
Tommy
break
Shelby
it
now.
bad. There we go. Yeah, we're but that's a good idea though, right? We can actually go to that series some other
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I've never watched that one. What is it on?
Oh, it's really good.
No, I'd
Oh,
like
It's
it's
to
the
watch
best.
really
it.
good.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
But who else did we want to talk about in Breaking Bad?
kind of like we talked about originally. We stick to characters that have a lot of scenes, enough
Yeah.
scenes. So I think, I don't even know if we need to watch much Skylar. And I feel like Saul is also really clear as far as his character.
We can
Let's
So
talk
watch
about
Saul.
Saul.
easy.
Yeah. Let's
One
talk
of the
about Saul.
interesting one I think that I'm not as sure about is Gale. I think he's a good one because I don't really have a great predetermined outlook on him.
Is it a lot of clips with Gal to analyze him well? I would say that I think what's clear with Gal is any uh TE most likely. I was thinking he could be a potential ideator, like ideation. Um,
Yeah. See, my feeling for him, my gut is that him being a guardian. I just think he has this sort of, you look at how he lives his apartment, it's all this sort of carefully laid out, very structured way of life he has, right? He's very meticulous, very careful. He builds like this sort of complicated chemistry set coffee maker to try to impress Walt, right? Like, to me, most likely he's guardian, but that's just that initial vibe read. I think that's too why Gus likes him, right? Gus sees him and like, this guy's very careful and very cautious and very restrained, and so he sees him as a great kind of a insurance policy against the very volatile and egotistical Walt and unreliable Jesse, right? He's looking at these two guys and it's like, my future is on these guys. It wasn't acceptable, and so he brings in Gale as insurance. I guess maybe I have more of an argument than I thought. I'm just throwing those out there. To me, those are.
oh yeah,
That's the other major one.
I don't know.
yeah.
I think Alphi shared a video, but I don't know if that's about Saul. Is that a Saul video?
No, the first one was Skylar with Ted, and then the one after I put is saw some clips for
Okay.
him.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna watch the Saul clips real quick.
hmm I guess Saul, to me, at least from what I've seen, extroverted is clear. Is it seeker destroyer or is it protocol chief? I think with him it's very clear that he is seeker destroyer over protocol chief as an extrovert because of how fluid he is in his energetics. Also, very much explorative, but within possibilities. It speaks to a detached any and an in-service function of FE as well because of how he formulates his arguments is very much.
I agree 100% with all of that, and you see that throughout the show. Is that he's very much. You can tell he enjoys it, right? That process of he does it almost because he finds it challenging and rewarding to sort of take these cases that are clearly like kind of bad people and spin those and get them off, right? I think he just enjoys the challenge of it more than anything.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
Like one of my favorite scenes with the clip is the one where Walt and Jesse, when Walt comes up with that scheme where they're going to intimidate him to get Jesse's friend out of jail, was when they first meet him, and they're going to take him out to intimidate him, and he makes them put the dollar in his mouth so that he's like, now technically I'm on retainer, and so now I'm legally covered. You know what I mean? That sort of weaselly way of doing it that's a really good scene.
Right. Also, he takes a lot of risks as well, right? It's not really like calculated, like careful in the details as
I think
much at all.
if it wasn't risky, he wouldn't find it fun.
Yeah, it speaks to his energetic of being a secret destroyer as well. He kind of just like living in it on a any front, more on the any pillar point of view type thing. Also, you could tell he's just a perceiver and not a judger because it's not everything doesn't have to be reduced down to any point of understanding or moral ethics or anything of that nature. It's just more so like taking it as it comes, dealing with it, and then throwing in possibilities and where it can lead, and just aiming for potential at all times. Is pretty much what makes him, makes his character so good.
Yeah, to me, he's one of the easier ones to top because his character's just consistent throughout the whole show. He's the same Saul in every scene. You know what I mean? Like, to me, his is very unambiguous.
Right.
He doesn't change, right? Like, he has no real character arc. And I mean, maybe that's part of why it's so easy, is that he doesn't really have a character arc. He's the same Saul at the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Sorry, who are we talking about right now? You still on Saul?
Saul, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a whole lot else. I think we're pretty clear with him.
Yeah. I think Gail.
Yeah.
I'm watching this video. I think Gail might be NETE.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Yeah.
It's interesting, because my read on him originally was more SI, but I think that doesn't quite sit right with me either. So I'm interested in the argument.
You're thinking like he was maybe SIFI or SITI?
I was thinking SIFI with that TE expression, but I think that doesn't quite. I'm not completely sold on it.
You know who he reminds me of? From Game of Thrones.
Sam.
Sam.
My guess. Yeah.
Sam.
You kind of see too. I mean, just to support that, his FI in that, he's also sentimental and attaches to Walt, right? Like he
right.
writes that book to him, the Walt Whitman book of poetry, and it's like it's almost, you know, it's really sentimental, and that's, of course, ends up being the clue that finally solidifies it in Hank's, right? But it was very sweet and sentimental, right? The same thing with the coffee maker, right? He really is just trying to bond to Walt, but Walt just sees him as a threat.
Yeah, I'm thinking if Gale isn't NETE, then he's probably FISI. That would be my guess. I wouldn't think he's an SI Dom, but I do think he's more extroverted just because of like.
I think that's good. I think as soon as I said it, I wasn't as happy with the argument, and that's usually a sign I'm missing something. But I like it. I think we're on the right track.
You don't have to be. You're being apologetic for your ideation, which you don't have to be.
No, I do. That's my process.
That's
you have to accept.
That's typhoon ideation for sure.
He's like, accept my apology, or else.
Yeah, you have to accept my.
He's like, or I'm gonna keep saying sorry until.
Right. Best, yeah, just accept it, and then I can move on.
Yeah.
But now that you said that, Sam's character makes more sense to me.
Although Sam had some sort of a childlike curiosity about him.
Yeah.
Gale, I mean, maybe it's development. Maybe they're the same, but development-wise is different.
Yeah, Gale also, like I said, when you look in his home, he comes off as almost a stereotypical SI to me because it's so carefully arranged and structured, and he comes off as just a very restrained and almost OCD kind of personality, right?
Are we seeing the same thing? You're talking about Gale or Gus? Because Gale's apartment is a mess.
Yeah.
Am I misremembering?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm misremembering.
It's like, I was like, wait a second. Because you're like saying Gale, and I was like, hold up, wait. I just watched the video of Gus going into Gale's home, and that was not organized.
Oh. Maybe I'm just... it's also possible I'm completely misremembering. Like, sometimes I just have a wrong image in my head.
Mm-hmm.
The NET argument.
So, I'm not 100% on Gale being NEDOM.
He may not have enough scenes for it to really be clear. If you think about it, his story arc is pretty short.
The more I think about it, the more I'm kind of leaning actually FI more than NE. Mainly because like him and Jesse get along very well. They actually do form a connection, and he like compliments Jesse, where Jesse doesn't get many compliments and stuff like that. And he recognizes like, oh, you know, the importance of, you know, telling your teammates that like they're doing a good job. And I think it's more like is like maybe it's fear in the scene with Gale, but he seems more reserved and being like, well, I don't really feel comfortable yet with the process. Like he doesn't feel like he's comfortable knowing the process, even though he's been working with Walt so far. And he's like, maybe if I have like 2 or 3 more cooks with me, and like that's when Gale like gives him a glare, and he's like, maybe 1 more, that'd be fine. And like he's not that confident, I think, with experimenting. I think he's trying to actually, like, he's trying to experiment, like he's trying to do his ideation, but it's not that strong. And I think it's more of like he's afraid of messing up the process and not being as good as Walt.
So you're saying what, like maybe FIS?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good argument too.
Right, because I could see a difference between him and Sam from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And Sam had more of a childlike curiosity and really in ideation, trying to understand the world around him and find some sort of solution to, you know, whatever that was going on. But with Gale is different. It's not quite. He's not quite curious.
Yeah.
he's not extremely cautious, but there is some reserve with him.
Yeah, I go back to what I said before, is that he's very sentimental, right?
Right. What you said, yeah, that
But
actually,
restrained.
right.
I can
right.
see it. I think that's a really good argument too.
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
It's just more of like he has more of that like attachment than a detachment, like leading thing going on to me. It seems like he's actually pretty attached to judgments. I mean, he's like, we're showing that like FI leads doesn't mean that you're going to be morally doing the right thing all the time, but like for him, I think this is all just gauging from like, one of the clips and from what I can remember about him, but like he's there to learn how to make the meth the way that Walter makes it. And so like he's trying to learn the way to do it. And I don't think he's as like systematic as I think like an NETE would be. Well, NETE will be like experimenting things. They'll still have a better idea of how to make sure things are structured to make it work. While he seems to struggle because he's not confident yet with like the actual process of how to make the meth, like that level of meth. And that's why he said, I need more people to help me make sure that I have this system correct, kind of thing.
He's like, I think you're actually really like this argument now. I can see a lot of myself in my approach in him now that you say that. In that he needs a lot of examples, you know what I mean? He needs to repeat it enough times to build that confidence.
Yeah,
that's some great points. Very great points.
Yeah. And that sentimentality for his teacher. You know what I mean? And there is a bit of, I've always thought that FIS doesn't outsource as much, right? It's more like he has that detachment to the extroverted zone, unlike Jesse, because he's like, I'm just trying to do my job the best I can, right? Which kind of, he ignores everything outside that, right? He's just like, I'm just doing my job. He has that attitude. He's like, I really just want to do a good job. That's all he wants. That's his only motive in the whole thing.
Yeah.
I like
it's pretty solid.
No, I agree. No, I'm sold on that.
I agree with
Convinced.
No, same here. I think that makes a lot of. I think that's the last
really
piece
like that.
that really plugged it in well.
I think the two types. I think it's something I picked up on before too. Is that there is something between the types being mirrored, right? Between having the same that stack, right? Like being.
Well, when we're looking at it, right? Because like what you're seeing is like pretty much the same energetic. So like either if it's NEFI or FINE, you're seeing the adaptation, like the adaptive nature to it with those functions. But it's just really about like what those functions are doing within that adaptation. That's really going to be the difference.
Yeah, like, in socionics, they call them mirror types, and I'm like, because they really are like extroverted, introverted mirrors of each other. I think it's great. I think all that tracks, and why those types could both seem possible, even. I like it. I agree.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, good
Gail
stuff.
is FISI. Nice.
Yep. Let's write that in.
No, I agree.
Let's go.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah. You found one, Rogue. You found one.
We did it!
My eternal hunt. I have like a collection.
Collecting all the FISI.
Rogue is connecting all of his types. Like.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Gus real quick.
Okay.
We already did Gus, right?
Yeah,
we did.
We did. Yeah.
But that clip that we watched yesterday was very cool because it kind of showed the different sides of FE when it's being used in such a way.
I don't know.
Gus,
If you shared a video, I think maybe my phone wouldn't auto sleep. That would kind of be helpful.
Oh yeah, Gus Fling. We was but he was talking to Walter White inside the restaurant when he first met him.
Oh, that was a great scene.
Yeah.
That was really
Yeah.
good to see it.
But it's interesting how Walter comes in. He wants to just, meet him and stuff like that. But kind of Gus takes him through the ringer a little bit there, mainly
Yeah.
because he's cautious just in general. But he wants to make sure that who he's talking to, even though he kind of knows who he is already, he's, Walter came in there the day before and he didn't say anything to him, although he was there the whole time, and made him come back in the second day just to see how, because he's measuring a form
Yeah.
of consistency in a sense, but at the same time, just to see how dedicated a person is based off their regiments, what they do
Right.
continuously, speaks to him being SI Dom and what he
Yeah.
actually have a preference for as a builder type, right?
Yeah. It's like I kind of said yesterday too, is that clearly he's weighing this sort of risk versus reward, right? He knows that it's risky and he's trying to decide if there's enough there to make the investment in opening up worth it, right? Like he's
Right.
very much a calculated risk versus reward situation for him.
Yeah, yeah. And he had on his little FE going on too. It's like while it was only him and Walter there speaking to each other one-on-one, he's still playing the role of just a customer, treating Walt as a customer. Like, how can I help you?
Yeah.
Like, what do you need? And all that is just a form of masking in order to be careful into not revealing, the true operation behind the operation.
Yeah, like the part when he's like, "We're not the same," and I'm like, that couldn't be more clear than when he says it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You could see his face immediately change. That FE expression just I mean, he's a really great actor.
Oh
Seriously.
yeah.
Carlo Esposito.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
for
brings
sure.
that to every role he does. Absolutely.